All right, shalom, shalom. All praise, glory, and honor to Yahbashim Ashai, Bashim Kahakudash. Peace and salutations to you, Sincere Akim, pushing the truth throughout the four corners of the earth, risking your lives and freeing the Dusan more so than ever. May the calling of election be upon your house. Wanted to touch on the third woe. All right, World War III. Woe. Because as we know that we living in the midst of the third woe. All right, which is World War III. Let's see if I could just present this. Share screen, share. All right, this is Revelation chapter 8 and verse 13. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe. The inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpet and the three angels which are yet to sound. So there's three woes. All right. Then it goes into how the second woe is past and the third woe cometh quickly. No, it says one woe is past and two more woes hereafter. That was when World War I happened. All right, Revelation 9 and 12. One woe is past, behold, there come two woes more hereafter. So there's three world wars, not just two. Now, if you go look up all over the media, World War III is trending. All right, share this tab instead. Go to the news. All right, it says right here, could start World War III. Worry about possible World War III drops as regional conflicts rage on. Let's check this one out. This is by some website called IPSOS. All right, we don't want to read this. This is not good information. The president's justified overdue but probably too late authorization to Ukraine isn't pushing us toward World War III. And that's what they want you to believe on MSNBC. But we know right here, according to the scriptures, Revelation 9:12, one woe is past, behold, there come two more woes hereafter. So it's going to be World War III regardless, because that's got to be the war to end all wars. Revelation chapter 11 and verse 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly, right? Because World War I happened already, World War II happened already, and now we're going right into World War III, which really began the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and all of that. Now, if you didn't know, Russia just changed up their nuclear doctrine. All right. And there's different things that the Lord is making these nations do to pretty much inch themselves into World War III, because they got rid of the IDF, not the IDF, the IMF treaty, which is the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. Was an arms control agreement between the United States and Soviet Union that required the elimination of certain ground launch missiles. So that was canceled, and now these niggas can actually launch missiles on each other. All right, this treaty has been nullified. Okay, it expired right here. The U.S. withdrew out of that treaty in The U.S. withdrew out of that treaty in August 2nd, 2019. I believe it was Donald Trump. That treaty was in place since 1987, since the Cold War. Okay, and then Russia also changed their nuclear doctrine. It says Vladimir Putin has approved changes to Russia's nuclear doctrine, setting out new conditions under which the country would consider using its arsenal. The doctrine now says an attack from a non-nuclear state, if backed by a nuclear power, will be treated as a joint assault on Russia, and that's exactly what those ATACMS missiles was. Because those ATACMS missiles, they can't be fired into Russia by Ukraine itself. They would have to have satellite capabilities to be able to see into mainland Russia to be accurate in firing those missiles. So Russia is taking that ATACMS missiles attack as a joint attack from America, which is throwing America right into this world war. U.S. confirms Ukraine fired long-range ATACMS into Russia for the first time. It's not Ukraine that did that, because these are all Russia. These are all American-backed weapons. Ukraine doesn't have these weapons. These are weapons that are being given to Ukraine from America, from France, from Britain. Ukraine fired a series of ATACMS missiles inside Russia, marking the first attack using the U.S.-made longer-range weapons on 1,000 days of war. Okay? And then you just had this ceasefire going on with, Israel and Lebanon, because why? The Lebanese was fucking them up. They went invading into Lebanon, trying to hit them with all types of bombs, bombing civilians and shit. You go look at this picture right here. Okay, the Israelis, they like to attack people's residential buildings and kill civilians and kill children and children and women. And they rarely ever kill any combatants, any other military personnel. But it says Israel is close to implementing a ceasefire in Lebanon, where the country has begun waging a campaign against the political and militant group Hezbollah. All right, which these other nations, they don't have the same weapons as Israel, because Israel is being given weapons to by America, just like Ukraine. See, but Russia has its own missiles and capabilities and advanced weapons. So fucking with them is a no-no. And then you got the Israelis playing around with the Palestinians, playing around with the Lebanese. When they're gonna pretty much get into a battle with those Iranians over there, and those Iranians are gonna be backed by Russia. It's gonna throw America right in the midst of this world war. It says with the full understanding with the U.S., we are maintaining full freedom of action against Hezbollah. Netanyahu warned, promising to respond with force to every potential violation of the ceasefire. If Hezbollah violates the agreement and tries to rearm, we will attack, he stressed. If it tries to rebuild the terror infrastructure near the border, we will attack. If it fires a rocket, if it digs a tunnel, if it brings in a truck with missiles, we will attack. And they're gonna attack because these Edomites, all they know is violence. All they know is violence. That's how you know these people in the land right now, these are not the Israelites. These are Amalekites. And when you go read about it in the Old Testament, it's Amalek is first of the nations. So who's running America? These Amalekites. All right, who owns all of the buildings, the banks, the mainstream media? Amalek owns a lot of this stuff. This Numbers 24 and 20. And when he looked on Amalek, he took up his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be that he shall perish forever. Right. Amalek got America in the chokehold. They don't even take care of their own citizens, but yet they give all of this money to those Israelis. All right, funding all of their wars. They don't run anything. That's what I was trying to tell you. The president, and all of these different politicians, they're ran by these bankers, which are all Amalekites. All right, but let's just get into the scriptures. Let's go grab the book of Joel, man. Chapter 3, verse 9. It says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty man. Let all the men of war draw near, let them come up." That's right, because we're living in times of war. You go read about that in Ecclesiastes. There's a time for everything under the sun, a time for peace and a time for war. And right now we're living in a time of war. It's Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. To everything there's a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. So there's a time for everything. It says a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to build up. Jump down verse 8. A time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. And we live in a time of war, clearly living in times of war. All right, which these stupid Americans, they don't really believe that these things happening on the other side of the earth are actually going to implicate their lives here in America. And it absolutely is. Because what does the scripture say? That the least of the flock shall draw them out. Now, the least of the flock is talking about those Amalekites, those the Israelis, those fake Jews. All right, they're the least of the flock because they're the least of the nations, but they got all of the control over America. All right, if you say anything about Jewish people, they'd say what? That's anti-Semitic, right? They're the most protected people that you can't speak against. Anytime somebody says something about them, they lose their deal, they lose their endorsements, they lose their job, right? Talking about these stupid celebrities because they run all of the entertainment. There's always some Jewish guy coming up to, whether it be Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, they run all of the music industry. Jeremiah 49:20. Therefore, hear the counsel of the Lord that they have taken against Edom and his purposes that they proposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. That's right. And that's going to be those Amalekites trying to fight up against those Iranians over there. And America's going to pretty much defend them. Now, Russia is going to be Russia and Turkey. They're going to agree together. Now, another thing, Turkey, Russia relations. All right. It says right here, if it'll pop up. Now, all of those nations over there in the EU, the European Union, they're all going to start to break apart and go up against America. Turkey and Russia, they're going to come together. Because it talks about in the book of Ezekiel, the house of Togarmah. All right, the house of Togarmah and all its bands. Togarmah is talking about Turkey. And then you got all of those European Union nations, the Brexit, Britain, France, Italy, and all of those nations over there, they all gonna break apart. All right, and be they're no longer gonna be together. But it says right here in Ezekiel 38:5, it's Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. So they're gonna be together, the Russians and the Turkey. Okay, they're gonna come together militarily. I'm waiting for that. I keep my eyes on that as well. What lies behind Turkey, Russia? Okay, here it is right here. All right, you got Turkey and Russia shaking hands. It says, during the Cold War, Turkey presented itself as a steadfast guardian of Europe's southern flank against the Soviet threat. It stood lockstep with the Western Allies in the North Atlantic Treaty, but this once firm conviction has weakened in the past decade. Turkey's deepening entanglement with Russia and setbacks in its relations with the United States and some of its European allies have muddled the country's image as a staunch member of the Western security architecture. Ankara's ability to maintain a constructive dialogue with Moscow alongside Kyiv, even after Russia's attack on Ukraine, has been beneficial in some cases, as evidenced Turkey's role in the 2022 grain deal, prisoner swap. However, as a longtime NATO member, Turkey recently hedging has created an impression of dissent within the Western front against Russian aggression, as the transatlantic allies adapt to Europe's new geopolitical realities. Maintaining unity against Russia will be critical. Turkey will have a pivotal role in playing a long-term effort. I believe Turkey has one of the bigger militaries of those nations over there. Okay, Turkey is the second largest. Okay, Turkey has been a member of NATO. They have the second largest military, the second largest army, military force in NATO. So the Turkish armed forces is the second largest armed military force in NATO. All right. And Russia and Turkey, they're gonna do joint military. They're gonna join up militarily. See if I can find that. All right, here it is. It says it's time to reconsider Turkey's NATO membership. Uh, damn, they don't want to let me read this article. It says joining NATO was the best foreign policy pursuit that Turkey ever initiated in its existence as a republic during the Cold War. Its membership in the alliance kept Turkey from being overrun by the Soviet Union and helped provide space for an economic development as a Western ally. Why then is the alliance constantly having to grapple with an uncooperative and at times pugilistic Turkish leader and President Erdogan? It seems that in every instance, Erdogan is devoted to undermining the transatlantic alliance. It is time for NATO to reconsider Turkey membership. And that's because prophecy says that they're going to be under the Russians. Okay, prophecy says that uh, Turkey is going to become part of Russia's uh, um, you know assault, because that is the house of Gomer and the house of Togarmah. All right, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah and North Quarters and all his bands, and many people with thee. When you go look at the map of Gog and Magog, you'll see Russia is Gog, and you'll see the house of Togarmah and the North Quarters is clearly Turkey. Okay. Okay, you got Magog up here, Gomer, Togarmah. So like, let me just see if I can find a good map. Here is a better one. Okay, you got Gog and Magog, right? Meshech and Tubal, Togarmah and Gomer and all his bands. Now that's the Black Sea. Now the Black Sea, this is Russia up here, Gog and Magog. As a matter of fact, let me go look up a modern day uh map of this stuff, so we can all put this into the proper perspective. Okay, so here we are. We have the Black Sea, right? We have Russia up here on the right, which Ukraine. All of this is still Ukraine is really still Russia's territory. Okay, but so right here you got the Black Sea, and then right under the Black Sea you got what? Turkey. So you go back over here, right under the Black Sea, where you see Togarmah, Gomer, Meshech, and Tubal. And when you read about that in Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, it says that Gog and Magog is going to have Gomer and all his bands in the house of Togarmah with them as well. So that's going to happen. Turkey and Russia, they're going to become allied militarily, according to the scriptures. Now, another thing that'll happen as well is those European Union is going to break up. All right, they're going to break up. All of this of the so-called white man, his power structure is falling apart. All right, and this is what we've been keeping our eyes on. 2024 will decide whether the EU thrives or falls apart. Now, the scripture to back this up is in the book of Daniel, where it talks about the 10 toes, partly strong, partly broken. The 10 toes is those European Union nations, those NATO nations. Because they first, the European Union, other known as the Treaty of Rome, was first 10 nations. And now it became more than that, 13, 12. There's a bunch of people in the EU. And excuse me, in NATO now. All right, buddy. But the main premier ones were 10 nations. All right. We'll read about that. It says, how durable is the European Union? It's not as solid as we like to think. That's a fair chance to say that's a fair chance that 2024 will end up the history books as the somber counterpoint to 1957, the year when the Treaty of Rome launched the great adventure of European unification. Next year sees the coming together of risk-laden deadlines and events that will determine the EU's likely path over the crucially important coming decade. The European Parliament to be elected in June and a new commission will face more daunting challenges than any point in the EU's history. The prospect of further enlargement to bring in war-torn Ukraine, along with motley collection of Balkan states, raised thorny questions about the streamlining of EU decision-making. Controversy already rages over the degree to which member states, especially smaller ones, could be outvoted and forced to toe an EU line they find unacceptable. Talks about radical reforms would also take place against a background of growing resistance by Europe's populace to greater EU integration. How deep-seated are Europe problems? Could they be so profound as to put in doubt the EU's future as a geopolitical entity? The EU's difficulties in fashioning clear foreign policies is only part of the problem. More damaging to Europe's global image are its economic failures. Europeans are being overtaken in business and technology terms by the US and China, and their living standards are falling in relation to those of global competitors. That's right. So Europe is very far behind technologically, economically, and they rely heavily upon the United States and what the United States is doing. And the United States pretty much runs those places. Those places are those European places are nothing but tributary states to America. When they signed that allied deal, the Treaty of Rome, they pretty much just gave all their power over to America to make the decision making. That's why when you read that in Revelation, it talks about the whore rideth the beast. And these other European nations, these Edomites over there in Europe, they don't like America because of their pride. All right. This whole Trump coming into power and he's talking about America first. How does that make its allies feel? They feel like, damn, well, what about us? This is Revelation chapter 17, verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Right? The 10 horns is those EU NATO nations, and they're gonna hate the whore, which is America's the whore. So they're all gonna start turning on America as well. All right, because America is the one, the whore riding the beast. When you go read about this, go up and you'll see it right here. Revelation 17:1. And it came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore, which sitteth upon many waters. All right, the whore that rideth the beast. Let me go grab that. Slakia. But the point is that America's on top of all these other nations. They're allied with these European Union nations, and they're all gonna start to be divided and go up against one another. All right. Daniel 2:41. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of iron. For as much as iron thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part iron and part clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And that's what you're gonna come to find out, is that the allies, the allied powers, the Axis, whatever the fuck they call that, the Axis and the Allies, the Allied powers are not really in agreement about anything. Okay, and what did the Lord say? If a house or a kingdom be divided, that house should not stand. So that's another reason why these Edomites uh, um, are falling down. What to do about EU's relative decline? And they're all going to come up against America. This is the European Union will be marginalized if it continues to shrink compared to other parts of the world. 2 former Italian prime ministers. Uh, it said there are two ways of looking at the EU's relative decline. The first is in terms of living standards. Here's what matters: is not the developing countries led by China and India have been dragging themselves out of poverty in recent decades, so closing the gap on Europe. And that's how you know that the so-called white man is finished. All right, because Europe is where it all started. All of this goes back to Britain, Greece. I'm sorry, not Greece. Britain, France, and the Spanish, Spain. That's what colonized the earth. That's why niggas is speaking English right now. That's why the people speaking Spanish a lot. You know, that's why people speaking French a lot, because those are the 3 nations that went to colonize the earth. When you go look up, when you go read about it in the book of Daniel, it says what? It was 3 horns, and came up a little horn. from those three horns. That little horn that came up is America, which came out of Britain. Daniel 7 and 8. And I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. Who's that? America. It says, before whom the first of the three horns, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots. Why? Because America became bigger than France, bigger than Britain, bigger than Spain, right? Because when they first came over here, that's why you got French Canada and you got British Canada. You got French Canada on the I believe on the right hand side, right? And then you got British Canada on the left hand side, right? Because Canada is split up. And you had what? Louisiana was owned by the French. You had the Louisiana Purchase, and then you had all of South America was owned by the Spanish, and the different parts of the Mexicans and all of that. They took that over. So it was those three nations that would colonize the earth: the French, the Spanish, and the British. Before whom three of the first were horns were plucked up by the roots, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. So you going back into you looking into the European Union, and the decline of Europe, you know that the so-called white man is losing power and that his time is running out. You see in places like China and India, which is considered to be gooks and fucking all that's why the scripture said that the weak shall say I am strong. And they also have advancements militarily while dealing with Russia. Russia sending them military weapons. There are two ways of looking at EU's relative decline. The first in terms of living standards. Here, what matters is not that developing countries led by China and India have been dragging themselves out of poverty in recent decades, and so closing the gap on Europe. Says Eric Nelson, blah blah blah. It says it is that the EU has not been moving ahead of as fast as the United States, and they're gonna look at. That's why the scripture says that his look was more stout than his fellow. All right. So they're going to start to hate the United States because while the United States is putting sanctions on Russia, which Russia is the one that's supplying them with all of this natural gas and grain that's helping their economy, all right, following after America, they're going to start to turn on America. Daniel 7 and 20. And of the 10 horns that were in his hand, this is talking about NATO and the EU, and of the other which came up, before whom three fell, we just went into that. Okay, even of the horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. Right. So, who's that? That's America. They're very prideful. They think that they're better than everybody, even their allies. They're like, yeah, sit over there and shut up, France. Sit over there and shut up, Poland. All right. We do what we want to do. We got all the weapons. It says EU income per head has grown 55% since the single market has been created in 1993 when measured on a purchasing power parity basis. That's not far behind the 65% gain enjoyed by the average American, but the EU has only kept up because new members such as Poland have expanded fast. That country's income per head has almost quadrupled. By contrast, income per person on the bloc's bigger and older members. Germany, France, and Italy is only up 37%, 35, and 20 respectively over the same period. All right, so that's why it says you had some that were partly strong, partly broken, because you have some nations that are stronger financially, militarily, and some that are weaker financially, militarily. All right, and so because of that, that can't mix. It says, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, right? You can't put iron mixed together with no some dirt. That's not a good foundation. It said they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, they shall not cleave to one another, even as iron is not mixed with miry clay. All right, and so that kingdom is going to be destroyed as well. All right, this is the last and final rulership before the Lord come through and break the shit down. It's already breaking down from the inside out. All right, in the midst of World War III coming along, they're gonna pretty much turn on each other. All right, while these other nations is going to call their number. Mainly America. America's going to be the main ones that get hit with these nuclear missiles, and these nuclear missiles are going to come from those European Union nations, in China, in Russia. Everybody's going to shoot their missiles at America, because America is undermining global stability, and people are tired of it. They're tired of they're going to start to look at you Edomites as the problem. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that, man. I pray that it was edifying, man. All praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh Shema Shai. Shalom.